Yes. In Karnataka, there are three enactments are there. Number one, Karnataka Rent Act 1999. Then Public Premises Eviction of Unauthorized Occupants Act 1971. PP Public Premises Eviction of Unauthorized Occupants Act 1971. Yes. Then the third one is which is the third enactment? Yes, anybody? Yes. When there is a landlord and a tenant relationship, landlord wants to take possession of the property from the tenant with the due process of law. First one is Karnataka Rent Act 1999 is the special enactment applicable only to the state of Karnataka. Second one is Public Premises Eviction of Unauthorized Occupants Act 1971. Third one is, which is the third one? Yes? Huh? No, third enactment. Third one. Yes, anybody? Yes. Third one is under the general law, that is Transfer of Property Act 1881. These are the three enactments applicable when the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999 is applicable, when the provisions of the Public Premises Eviction of Unauthorized Occupants Act 1971 is applicable, when the provisions of the Transfer of Property Act is applicable. This is the first question to be determined before initiation of the proceedings against the tenant for recovery of the possession of the premises from the tenant. Yes. My sincere advice is, there is a full bench judgment by the Honorable High Court of Karnataka reported in ILR 2011 Karnataka 229. I repeat it once again. ILR 2011 Karnataka 220, page number 229. In the case of Abdul Wajid versus A.S. Wonkarappa. This is the landmark judgment passed by the Honorable High Court of Karnataka. Full bench, this is full bench judgment comprising of Honorable Srimati Justice Manjula Challu, Honorable Mr. Justice D.V. Shailendra Kumar, Honorable Mr. Justice K.M. Keshava Narayana. Yes, before going to initiate or before going to draft the plain copy or the HRC proceedings, one should read this judgment. If you read this judgment, you will come to know there are three types of proceedings can be initiated by the landlord against the tenant. In case if the premises in question is situated within the Bangalore city, three types of proceedings can be initiated by the landlord against the tenant for recovery of the possession of the property, and also in case if there is any arrears of rent, and also if the landlord wants to claim means profits. Yes. As I said in the beginning itself, these provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999, if you look into the previous year question paper, for civil judge junior division, for civil judge examinations, see, for writing of the judgment, the question or this question was asked or the material was provided to the students to write a judgment on the basis of the material given by the examiner or given in the examination. See, judgment, have you seen the previous year question paper of the civil judge examination? Yes, anybody? Same question is asked, whether the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act or the Transfer of Property Act or the Public Premises Eviction of Unauthorized Occupants Act 1971 is applicable. Yes. Under what's first and foremost thing is, if you want to know the difference between HRC, OS, SC. OS means original suit, SC small cause. If you want to know the difference between HRC, OS and small causes, one should read this thing. Yes. See, if you go through this judgment, we will come to know the jurisdiction of the courts. We will come to know the jurisdiction of the courts. When HRC proceedings has to be initiated, when SC small cause courts has to be initiated, when original suit has to be instituted. If you, this is the landmark judgment. To know the difference between the HRC, SC and OS, this is the important thing. Yes. Even if the landlord wants to take the possession of the premises from the tenant, then the first and foremost thing is whether premises in question comes under the provisions or whether the premises in question, the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act is applicable or not. My first question is, when the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act is applicable? Yes, anybody? Yes. Yes. When the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act is applicable? Yes. Anybody? Small cause courts. When the question, what has to be seen immediately, for example, if the person approaches the advocate, first and foremost, what is the information to be gathered from the claimant? In case tenant, landlord. Okay. Yes.
Measurement of it.
Next. First and foremost thing is whether the premises in question is a residential premises or non-residential premises, and whether where the premises, if I presume or assume that the premises in question is situated within the Bangalore city or within the jurisdiction of the metropolitan cities. In Karnataka, there are 7 or 8 metropolitan cities are there. For example, Mysore, Davangere, Belgaum, Hubli, Dharwad, these are all the metropolitan cities. If the premises in question is situated in metropolitan cities, then what is the rate of rent? Well, first and foremost thing is premises in question is a residential premises or non-residential premises. And section 2 of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999 is very important. It says that application of the act. Here the question see, this act shall apply to any premises belonging to or this nothing contained in this act shall apply to any premises belonging to the state government, the central government or local authority. It is excluded if the owner of the premises in question is the state government, local authority or the central government. It is excluded from the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999. First thing. Second one is Mujrai or religious or charitable institution. If the landlord is the or the owner of the premises is the Mujrai, religious or charitable institutions. Third one is a work property. Even you know very well. Then if the work board is the absolute owner of the property, then the proceedings has to be initiated under the provisions of the Public Premises Eviction of Unauthorized Occupants Act 1971. Then to any building belonging to a cooperative society registered under the provisions of the Societies Karnataka Cooperative Societies Act 1951. Then the multi-state cooperative society. Then to any building belonging to a market committee. You know very well APMC, Agricultural Produce Marketing Committees are constituted under the APMC Act. Then for example, certain stalls are given on rental basis to the general people, to the general public or the businessmen to carry on the business in the scheduled premises. Then the provisions of this Karnataka Rent Act is not applicable. Then to any premises deemed rent, this is very important. Section 2(3)(e), Section 2(3)(e) of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999 provides for to any premises. Nothing contained in this act shall apply to any premises deemed rent on the date of commencement of this act or the standard rent of which exceeds 3,500 rupees per month in any area referred to in Part A of the first schedule. Then the 2,000 rupees per month in any other area. As I said in the beginning itself, first and foremost thing to be determined is whether the premises in question is a residential premises or non-residential premises. If it is a residential premises, irrespective of the measurement, what is the rate of rent to be paid by the tenant to the landlord? That has to be. Here what it says is 3,500 rupees per month in any area, of which here the standard rent of which exceeds, if it exceeds 3,500 rupees, then the provisions of the Rent Act is not applicable. If it is 3,500 rupees and less than 3,500 rupees, rent for the rent of the scheduled premises is then the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act is applicable. This is only in respect of residential premises. Then in case first again whether the residential premises in question comes or is situated within the local jurisdiction of the metropolitan cities or not. If it is situated within the local limits of the metropolitan cities, then the rent of the scheduled premises should be less than rupees 3,500 or less than 3,500. If it exceeds, then the provisions of the Act is not applicable. Then if the premises in question is situated other than the metropolitan cities, then the 2,000 rupees per month in any other area. This is very important section. Section 2(3)(e) of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999. Yes, hope you have understood. This is what I said in the beginning itself. If the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act is applicable, there are certain conditions are there. If those conditions are applicable, then only HRC proceedings has to be initiated against the tenant by the landlord. Then again the question arose in the HRC proceedings whether the arrears of the rent can be claimed or not. That is, to this question, answer is section 27(2)(a) of the Karnataka Rent Act. Section 27(2)(a). There are two provisions are there under the Karnataka Rent Act. One is section 27(2)(a) and another is section 45 of the Karnataka Rent Act. These are the two important provisions in respect of recovery of arrears of rent. Hope you have understood. Then the next question. In respect of non-residential premises, whether the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act is applicable to the all non-residential premises or only to certain non-residential premises, these provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act is applicable. Yes, here what it says is section 2(3)(f) provides for nothing contained in this act shall apply to any premises constructed or substantially renovated either before or after the commencement of this act for a period of 15 years from the date of completion of such construction or substantial renovation. Now this is also very important. Why? Because see, it says 15 years should have been completed from the date of construction of the premises in question. If the 15 years has not been completed from the date of construction of the building, then again the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act is not applicable. Even if the proceedings is initiated under the Karnataka Rent Act 1999, this is also one of the defenses available to the tenant, which can be taken by the tenant in his written statement or statement of objections. General denial is, say, 15 years has not been completed from the date of construction of the scheduled premises. Therefore, provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act is not applicable. When the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act is not applicable, then again what has to be seen whether the SC is applicable or not. SC, small causes, to be initiated under the provisions of the Small Causes Courts Act 1964. Yes, to know whether the Small Causes Courts Act is applicable or the Karnataka Rent Act is applicable or the General Act, that is the Transfer of Property Act, is applicable. This judgment is very important judgment on this point. Yes. I hope you have understood this is application of the Act. Then the section 2(3) within bracket 3 within bracket G, small g also, it says that nothing contained in this Act shall apply to any premises used for non-residential purpose, but excluding premises having a plinth area of not exceeding 14 square meters used for commercial purpose. Nodi, exceeding 14 square meters. See, 14 square meters and the less than 14 square meters and the premises in question is non-residential premises, then the provisions of the Act, Karnataka Rent Act is applicable. 14 square meters means what is the in terms of square feet, 150.64 square feet, 14 square. If it is converted into the square feet, yes. These are the important topics in respect of application of the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act 1990. Hope you have understood. Yes. Then if you come to the definition clauses defined under section 3 of the Karnataka Rent Act 1990. Yes. That very interestingly, normally or generally, we have understood that landlord should be an absolute owner of the property. Is it not so? If he is an absolute owner of the property, then only he can initiate proceedings against the tenant. But if you look into the definition of landlord defined in section 3 of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999, and also there is a judgment by the Honorable Mr. Justice N. Kumar. I will tell you later. There is a judgment. Yes. Then who is a landlord? The definition of the landlord defined in section 3E of the Karnataka Rent Act is important. Even from the reading of section 2, 3E of the Karnataka Rent Act, we will come to know that landlord need not be an absolute owner of the property. Landlord need not be an absolute owner of the property. Even a landlord is a person who is entitled to receive rent from the tenant. He is a landlord. When once he is a landlord, he can initiate proceedings against the tenant, either for recovery of the possession of the property or for recovery of arrears of the rent. Here the landlord means a person who for the time being is receiving or is entitled to receive the rent of any premises, whether on his own account or on account of or on behalf of or for the benefit of any other person, or as a trustee, guardian or receiver for any of other person, or who would so receive the rent or to be entitled to receive the rent if the premises were to let to a tenant. Yes, this is section 2E of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999. Hope you have understood. There is a judgment by the Honorable Mr. Justice N. Kumar reported in ILR 2008 Karnataka 1493. ILR 2008 Karnataka 1493, page number 1493. In the case of Sri Shamrao Rukmanna Tadwar versus Srimati Suvarna. Yes, this is the only judgment on the definition of landlord defined in section 3E of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999. Yes. Then ILR Sri Shamrao Rukmanna Tadwar versus Srimati Suvarna. Yes. Here, what is held in this case law is petition presented by a person who has not acquired absolute title, maintainability, held the landlord who seeks eviction under section 27(2)(r) need not be an absolute owner of the premises. Of the premises. Yes. The word landlord has been defined under the Act, meaning a person who for the time being is receiving or is entitled to receive the rent of any premises. Therefore, a petition for eviction under section 27(2)(r) can be filed by the landlord for occupation for himself or by the owner of the property for the requirement of any member of his family or for any person for whose benefit the premises are held. If such a petition is filed, it has to be sworn to by an affidavit setting out the nature of requirement, and even a person who has not acquired absolute title to the property, a person who has not acquired absolute right or absolute title to the property can maintain a petition for eviction as provided under explanation 3. Hope you are getting my point. Yes. This is then we have studied whether the premises in question is a residential premises or non-residential premises has to be decided first, has to be seen first. Then when one judgment is there, even if it is a vacant land situated in a Bangalore city, then the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act is applicable. Very interesting judgment rendered by Honorable Mrs. Justice Nagaratna Madam. That is a very judgment under section 40 of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999. Under section 40 of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999. This is a very interesting judgment which is rendered on section 40 of the Karnataka Rent Act. I will tell you later. See, the reported judgment. This is the only judgment, very interesting judgment. Yes, here what it says, section 3, 1I, premises means a building as defined in clause A. Here, any land not used for agricultural purpose. Notice, if the vacant land is situated in a Bangalore city or in any metropolitan cities, then which is not used for any agricultural purpose. If it is not used for any agricultural purpose, then the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act is applicable. Then the landlord can seek eviction of the tenant under the provisions of the Karnataka Rent Act. This is the only interesting judgment, very beautiful judgment written by Honorable Mrs. Justice B.V. Nagaratna. Yes, present Supreme Court Judge. Yes, I hope you have understood. These are the brief introduction of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999. Yes, now I said in the beginning itself, full bench judgment of the Honorable High Court. I will tell you later. Then what are the important provisions under the Karnataka Rent Act 1999? What are the important provisions in addition to these provisions? See, important provision is section 17 of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999. It provides that where in case if the landlord refuses to receive the rent, where the rent has to be deposited, but the tenant is ready to pay the rent, but landlord is not ready to receive the rent, then which is the competent authority before whom the rent has to be deposited. Here, this is the relevant provision of law is section 17 of the Karnataka Rent Act. It says that deposit of rent and other charges by the tenant. Where to deposit? Even the court will not accept. Why? Because there is no provision under the Karnataka Rent Act. But under certain circumstances, by filing an application under section 151 of the CPC, or on the request of the tenant, the court can accept it or the court can pass an order for depositing the arrears of the rent. Here the question is section 17 of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999 provides for where the landlord does not accept any rent and other charges tendered by the tenant within the time and the manner referred to in section 16 or refuses or neglects to deliver a receipt referred to therein. Now, section 16 of the Karnataka Rent Act 1999 provides that it is the obligation of the landlord to provide or to issue receipt. See, section 16 says receipt to be given for rent and other charges paid. This is the obligation of the landlord to provide a receipt, rent receipt. But here the question is, what will be the consequences in case if the landlord fails to provide or fails to issue or refuses or neglects to deliver a receipt referred to therein, or where there is a bona fide doubt as to the person or persons to whom the rent and other charges are payable. Nodi, this is also